ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. We'll continue reading chapter 18 of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. People are suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, each and every one of us should be engaged in the preaching work of Krishna consciousness for the benefit of the whole world. Lord Chaitanya, whose picture is in the front of our store, has very nicely preached the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. The Lord says, just take my orders, all of you, and become a spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya gives the order that in every country you go and preach Krishna consciousness. So if we take up this missionary work to preach Bhagavad Gita as it is, without interpretation and without any material motives behind it as it is, then Krishna says it shall be done. We should not have any attraction for worldly activities, otherwise, we can't have Krishna. But it does not mean that we should be inimical to the people of the world. No, it is our duty to give them the highest instruction that you become Krishna conscious. And a young man in the audience seems unable to contain himself and begins making his own incoherent speech. Prabhupada, no, you cannot disturb just now. Man standing up, now wait a minute. Man, a quarrel begins as others try to quiet him. Prabhupada, no, 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 not just now. No, you cannot ask just now. Man, well, I am trying to talk. Prabhupada, no, just now you cannot ask. Man, but wait a minute, man, wait. Prabhupada, why do you interfere just now? We have a regular question time. Others in the audience, let the man finish. Yeah, let him talk. The man's supporters defend his right to speak, while others try to silence him. Second man, I have just one question, please. How long is an individual allowed or expected to go on without any type of thought? How long? Prabhupada, I am not finished. We'll give question time after finishing the talk. The party's gone quarreling. All right. I am very glad you are curious, but please wait. Have some patience because we have not finished. As soon as we finish, after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I will tend to your question. Don't be impatient. Sit down. The audience quiets down and the Swami goes on with his talk. After 5 minutes, Prabhupada, all right. This gentleman is impatient. We shall stop here. Now, what is your question, sir? Man, practically we tend to place emphasis on those we identify with the fact itself. Many people are meant to explain the why force and where force of the metaphysical truth. That I think, therefore I am. Prabhupada, what is your particular question? Man, I have no answer to that question, rather, but that I attempt. I live, I breathe. Prabhupada, yes. Man, so ability, tell me why I have nothing to do with it. May I understand the why force and where's? Prabhupada, that's all right, man. I have difficulty in you. I have difficulty in saying. Prabhupada, so long as we are in this material world, there are so many problems. Man, not many problems. It is not many problems. This is the greatest fact I know. Prabhupada, yes, man. I also know that the whys and wherefores of my particular. Prabhupada, yes. Man, I did not come here, but let me explain my position. This is not necessarily. I feel I must. I think the difference is to learn. You will find it innumerable times by the same token. Maybe we are able to reconcile the fact of individual being for a long time to find out why. Prabhupada, turning to one of the boys, Roy, can you answer his question? It is a general question. You can answer. Yes. Roy turns sympathetically to the rambling questioner and Prabhupada addresses his audience. Enough questions. His voice now seems tired and resigned. Let us have kirtan. And the lower east side once again abates. The chanting begins. The brass cymbals, Prabhupada's voice carrying the melody, and the audience responding. It goes for half an hour and then stops. It is now 9. The audience sits before Swamiji while a boy brings him an apple, a small wooden bowl, and a knife. As most of the audience still sits and watches, gauging the after effects of the chanting as though it had been some new drug. The Swami cuts the apple in half, then in fours, then in eights, until there are many pieces. He takes one himself and asks one of the boys to pass the bowl around. Swamiji holds back his head and deftly pops a slice of apple into his mouth without touching his fingers to his lips. He chews a bit, ruminating, his lips closed. The members of the congregation munch silently on little pieces of apple. Prabhupada stands, slips into his shoes, and exits through the side door. As Prabhupada retired to his apartment and his guests disappeared through the front door back into the city, Don and Raphael would turn out the lights, lock the front door, and go to sleep on the floor in their blankets. Don and Raphael had needed a place to stay when they heard about the Swami's place. Prabhupada had a policy that any boy who expressed even little interest in becoming his student could stay in the storefront and make it his home. Of course, Prabhupada would ask them to contribute toward the rent and meals. But if, like Don and Raphael, they had no money, then it was still alright, provided they helped in other ways. Don and Raphael were the first two boys to take advantage of Prabhupada's offer. They were attracted to Swamiji and the chanting, but they were not serious about his philosophy or the disciplines of devotional life. They had no jobs and no money. Their hair was long and unkempt, and they lived and slept in the same clothes day after day. Prabhupada stipulated that at least while they were on the premises, they could not break his rules: no intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating, or gambling. He knew these two boarders were not serious students, but he allowed them to stay in hopes that gradually they would become serious. Often, some wayfaring stranger would stop by, looking for a place to stay the night, and Don and Raphael would welcome him, an old, white bearded Indian turned Christian who was on a walking mission, proclaiming the end of the world, and whose feet were covered with bandages. One slept for a few nights on a wooden bench in the storefront. Some nights, as many as 10 drifters would seek shelter at the storefront, and Don and Raphael would admit them, explaining that the Swami did not object as long as they got up early. Okay, as long as they got up early. Even drifters whose only interest was a free meal could stay, and after the morning class and breakfast, they would usually drift off again into Maya. So, stop here. Continue reading tomorrow. But my realization from today's reading is about Srila Prabhupada's patience, um, like how what kind of and he was tolerating so many different kinds of individuals, but however he was so determined and fixed in his mission that he was tolerating everything. You can see his patience, like people, what category of people were there, like they had interest only to stay there because they have no shelter and no food, nowhere to take bath, everything, so they're taking shelter. However, they're like this John and Raphael, they were even though they could not contribute for any money, they were helping Srila Prabhupada in some way. And at the beginning of the reading today, Srila Prabhupada, it's mentioned that how the preaching of Krishna consciousness teachings is so important. Even in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, Krishna explains that who preaches his messages or teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is, without any interpretation or without any hidden desires, they are the best, and they become good devotees very fast, and with serious devotional practice they will go back home, back to Godhead easily. So we can understand how important it is preaching of Mahaprabhu's message and teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned a very serious point that we should not judge or we should not hate someone who is not practicing Krishna consciousness, because um, we have to think ourselves we are very fortunate that we got this one in this life. So many people are not that fortunate, so we should not have a we should not treat them differently, or we should not hate them that they're not doing, they're into so much of mode of ignorance. Rather, we should always try to help them. That's what is my understanding from today's reading is we can also Srila Prabhupada's patience level. Again, this verse, Utsahat Nishchay Dhairyat, how important it is for us as sadhakas to like who are practicing devotional service. Or at the beginning, so important, because devotional service, my Guru Maharaj always says that devotional service is a gradual process. We should not expect any kind of miracle like within certain period of time. Like we cannot say that we're doing chanting for this many months or this many years, still we are not getting that test, because devotional service is a gradual process. It needs time. Sometimes it may happen in this lifetime, sometimes it may need lifetimes, many lifetimes. So only thing we can do is our part. We can do that. Rest is Krishna's mercy. Everything is Krishna in Krishna's hand. But we have to always follow Krishna's teachings. Then Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, previous acharyas, our spiritual masters teaching, and let everything in Krishna's hand. Yeah, that's